Hello, Ian here from How to Make an eBook Part 4. This tutorial aims to help you turn your manuscript into an eBook that you want. Now, Part 4, Chapters. So just like yesterday when we added the poem, there's nothing really different about it. We're adding the heading, we're adding the chapter, and we're adding an image. But then it's up to you whether you want the image or not. If you do, then change the image name to an image that you want. And if you don't, just delete that line of code. So why don't we just start, and I'll show you how to get the chapters into this HTML editor. Like again, I'm using my own book as an example, but for you, you will be deleting my sections and replacing it with your sections. Okay, so let's get started. We are at the end of the poem section that we added. Now, at the moment, I have the actual poem here, the full poem. Well, yesterday I just added, I think, 3 paragraphs. At the moment I've added the full poem, and I finished with end of poem section. How do we do the chapters? The same way we did the poem. We add the space and we add the section. So we call this chapter 1, image hungry, end of image chapter 1 hungry. This is the section for the image only. Remember, the div ID tag, that links to your table of contents. What it is here has to be the same in your table of contents to link the two together. This is a 0, not an O. So make sure if you're going to add them in, they have to be the same. P-class chapter. Well, my chapter, number 1. And what happens to number 1? Well, why don't we have a look at the CSS code? It's the chapter class, no indent, normal font, but the font size is ever so slightly bigger than normal. This is 1.2 instead of 1.0. And the text gets centered. We've added an image. Now, this image won't work because I haven't added the location of the image. Remember yesterday I mentioned about having a subfolder with all your images? Well, at the moment this browser or this editor will look in the same folder that this file is in, and it won't find anything. And I'm going to show you that now. I'll show you what happens. The heading class for my chapter is called Hungry. And what happens to that? If we scroll up and look for the heading class, no indent, normal font, font size 1.5, and it is centered. So we should be pretty familiar now with these classes. So I'm going to preview, and we've got the tree image as normal. We've got the poem. I scroll down, but there is no image. We have one, we have the name of the chapter, and we have the name of the image. Because remember yesterday I mentioned about search engine optimization and Google Images, and the alt tag. If you can give a name to all your links in your images, then search engines can find them. Well, my image is called the bad, and that's hidden when the image is there. So what do we do? Well, if I click on source, the code will be slightly ugly now because Composer seems to scrunch everything up. So I'm just going to have to tidy it for you. Okay, so we can actually see what's going on. Okay, so this alt tag here, this is where we give the name of the image, the bad. Okay, but we need to tell the browser, we need to tell the editor where this image is. And it happens to be in a subfolder called images. And to separate the two, we put a /. So the editor knows where the file is because we've opened it up, but it doesn't know where the images are. So we have to tell it that it's not in the same folder as the file, it's in a subfolder called images, and the image name is there. And when we click on preview, there we have the image. Okay, all centered. So 1 centered, 1.2 size. Hungry, name of the chapter, centered, size 1.5, the image is centered. go back to the source code, and so I have to clean it up. A few things to point out. We mentioned about the div tag, we mentioned about the ID with the chapter 01 and the heading, and remember, because all this is going to be clickable within the table of contents of your book, we end it or we close it with a closed div tag. And below here is where we're going to put our story. So what do we need to do first? Create the section. Okay, so let's add a space so we can see what we're doing. This is the section, Chapter 1 Hungary, and within that, and within end of Chapter 1 Hungary section, we add our story. Like yesterday, we're going to indent every paragraph, and the way we do this is we add this P-class indent. Very simple. We go up to the CSS code, we look for indent, we see what happens. The indent is 1.25 across from left to right. Again, the line height, the gap between each sentence, is 130% rather than the standard 100%. It's the way I like it. So scroll down, class indent 1.25. Now have you noticed I've got this on top instead of at the beginning? Well, it doesn't really matter. It depends on how you want it to look. It's important that when you're coding, that the code is clean, it's neat and it's tidy, and when it comes to editing, it's easy to read. So my advice is, if you have the indent tag on the top, then have the closing underneath. If you have the indent tag to the left and in front of the paragraph, then keep the closing tag at the end. I just wanted to show you that if you have it this way or this way, it doesn't matter, the results will be the same. And at the end of every chapter, you finish with the page break, and then you end it with the section name. So it's very, very simple. You've created a section for your image, you've finished it or closed it off with a div tag, you've started your section chapter, you've added your indent tag at the beginning of your paragraph, you've closed it. When you've finished your chapter, you end it with a page break and then close it with your section remarks. Let's carry on. Now, within this whole tutorial, I have added 5 chapters, so that's what I'm going to do with this video tutorial. Okay, so I've added all 5 chapters to this tutorial, and I'll just take you through them again. I've created chapter 2 section, I've ended chapter 2 section, I've added the ID chapter 02, which corresponds to the table of contents. It's called 2. I've got my image in a subfolder called images, and then my image catapult. I've given it the name catapult. My heading chapter is called sightings, and then I closed it with a div tag, /div. So all this will be clickable on the table of contents. And then I finish this section with end of image chapter 2, sightings. I start a new section, which is where my story goes. And because I like the indent code to be at the beginning of the paragraph, that's what I've done here. You can have it on top, I've got it at the beginning. And then remember, at every finishing chapter, you end it with a page break and then your comments, end of chapter 2 section. Again with chapter 3, the image, where to find it, I close it, I start the chapter text, my indents, I finish with the page break, and I finish the section off. Same with chapter 4, ID, image, location, finish the section off, start the text, indent, page break, finish the section off, and lastly, section 5 for the image, chapter 05 ID, 5, image location, image, name of the chapter, finish the section off, start the chapter section, the indent, and finish the chapter with page break. Now with these chapters, they're only a couple of paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs long, but you would continue with the whole of your chapter, then end with the page break, and then end with this section. If you'd finished the complete story, your complete manuscript, then right at the end, you would just finish it off just like this. So this chapter 5 could be the end of my book. And if it was, I would just finish it off with the page break and then end of chapter 5, and that would be it. Now let's see, has this all worked? Will this HTML editor find my images within this subfolder? Well, I will click preview and we'll find out. There's the first image for chapter 1. There's the second image for chapter 2. The third image for chapter 3. The fourth image for chapter 4. And finally, the fifth image for chapter 5. That's it. That's what you do. You just repeat, 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 repeat. There's nothing really difficult about it. Once all the sections are broken down and you take it slowly, then at the end of the day it's just repeating the same line of text over and over again, and you will get a really nice looking manuscript. Thank you for watching this tutorial. The next one will be building the table of contents and making it clickable. Really exciting. So this is Ian. Thank you for watching part 4 of how to make an ebook. Have a great day. Bye bye.